All right, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited about today's episode. We have been working hard behind the scenes to make sure this happens. Today we talk with Ryan Thielen, founder of Triglass Productions and director for the Charlotte FC opening video trailer before players enter the pitch. We also have Al Raitt joining us from Charlotte FC to talk about the video and how it came about and how he got Ryan involved. Triglass is a team of future-facing creative outlaws passionate about video production and motion design. Whether it's short film, 2D or 3D motion graphics, promos, broadcast commercials, and title sequences. They're ready, and they've worked with dozens of professional sports teams, from the Golden State Warriors to the Philadelphia Flyers to Nashville SC to the Philadelphia Union to where they started out with the Minnesota Vikings. So they have a lot of experience in this and a lot of great productions. Triglass Productions has been awarded Best Show of Open and Best Hype Videos at the Golden Matrix Awards in 2021 IDEA Conference. They have 26 regional Emmy nominations and 19 regional Emmy wins. They are fortunate to be recognized by their peers as well and their clients. You can visit Triglass Productions at triglassproductions.com or follow them on Instagram, Twitter, and other social media platforms. All right, welcome to the podcast. We have Al Raitt, who we talked to just last week, and then we have here Ryan Thielen, and he is the founder of Triglass Productions. And Triglass Productions has a unique relationship with Charlotte FC because they provided this wonderful video that was actually just released a couple weeks ago to the public for people who were not in the stadium to be able to see. So we're going to talk a little bit about today and how that thing came about and kind of the two parties that started it. So first of all, give us context before the players come out. There's a video that plays on the large screens at Bank of America Stadium before the players come out, and it's basically a theatrical event to kind of introduce and get people pumped up. That's kind of how I see it. Hopefully that's what everybody else kind of sees it as, is this part. So how did this come about, Al? Like, how did you say, okay, we want to have this? Because lots of places do this, but they don't necessarily do it this way. So can you kind of share?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the season, we kind of set out to really rethink how match days are presented and go above and beyond what your typical open experience would be. And, normally, teams do high energy music videos that feature players, feature game action, highlights, all that. Well, starting off, we don't have that in February of a new season. So we had to get creative on how do we showcase our players in a badass way and show our fans that these guys are here to that mean business, that are there to perform for the city. And, we kind of set out to make this really cool, epic, trailer intro moment. I forget where we ended up with the actual verbiage of what this was supposed to be, but really just something truly theatrical is what we had set out to do. And I've known Ryan for 3-4 years now, 5, somewhere in there, in various spots, and we just never were able to sync up to work together. And my mind immediately went to Triglass and what they've been doing in the sports world specifically, because they have, Ryan, been singing praises here for a couple of seconds, but really just blown it out of the water when it comes to sports intros, graphics, video production. So it was an easy call to make, and I think a quick conversation. And we ended up with something pretty cool.
So did it start out like kind of what you said, like, we have this vision, we have no footage, so we need to start out, what do you think? Or did you kind of set, like, this is our theme, this is what we want?
Yeah, I think we went into some broad strokes of, like, this is the overarching, our theme was like futuristic royalty is a term that I threw out, I think, constantly. These are the new kings of Charlotte that we want to show who they are and their abilities. So as pre pros of these things, a lot of gray area to say the least. Just kind of, this is our overarching theme. This is what we're trying to do. Ryan created some great storyboards and examples, and we went back and forth just with some pre-production meetings of this is what we're thinking. What do you think? Back and forth brainstormings.
So Ryan, from your end, you get the call from Al, and you're like, "Yep, I'm on board. I want to do this. I understand the concept of what you're doing. Let me make some storyboards." So did you have a team of people that made this, or was this like you and you just like brainstorm and just come up with a bunch of different things? What was your process there?
Well, I'll kind of rewind a little bit because I think the way it all started was rather unique. Because to Al's point, what he said was usually these things are kind of music videos, which is true. And usually when they lean that direction, we're not always the right group to go to, right? Because we're trying to do something more story driven and more narrative driven. And I think that's what Al and I have really connected on in a meaningful way, is how can we do something that feels bigger than just a flashy, fun, bright video or something with LED screens or tubes or whatever the toys are. How can we do something that actually makes an emotional impact on our audience? And that was all Al coming to us saying, I want that. Like, that's the goal here. And that was a really exciting start for me, because usually I have to kind of fight for that a little bit.
Yeah.
But we were just off to a really good start right away. We were speaking the same language. And I have to give him credit for that. And also, it was exciting because we were kind of setting the tone for what this team was and who they are. I mean, at the time that we first spoke, they really just had a logo, if I remember correctly. They had a logo, they had some colors. Like Al said, he had some really great general ideas of what this is going to look like, and kind of pointed us in a direction. But then it was kind of up to us to say, okay, how can we take this as an opportunity with no prior work done for them, and elevate it to something that could be really special, that hasn't been done in MLS Open, or maybe even just in Open in general in sports. And so that was the goal, right? And so that's where we started, which was a great environment to be creative in. And, as a director, I get really excited about stuff like that. So I just threw the craziest ideas I possibly could at Al, and I'm like, let's just see what happens here. And I put together a deck that I would say was a pretty ambitious deck. And to be honest, I didn't really think that it had much of a chance of being approved. But Al was all about it. He was like, this is great. Like, let's, he had, of course, notes that I think improved it, but it really didn't dial anything back. We didn't dial back the creative and go for something more conservative or, more typical. I mean, we had characters in the Open, which is unusual. It was kind of fantasy driven. It required a lot of different departments you don't typically see in this space. We had an art department, a wardrobe department. We had concept artists. I mean, it was a full-blown little movie that we were trying to make in, a minute and a half or whatever the runtime ended up being.
Right.
And so I guess just really high level, that's how this whole thing started.
Nice. And so when you were creating the storyboards, did you have multiple for him to choose, or was it like, this is what we're starting with and see if you like this, and then we'll move from there?
Yeah. Well, I started with the story, which was, I wanted it to feel sort of like a dream, almost a nightmare, kind of somewhere between reality and fantasy. And I wanted the team and the players to be represented as a metaphor in this universe that we're creating. So this castle that we open on in the opening shot has elements of their stadium built into it. That is their palace. That is their home, right? Mm-hmm. Where you are going into their home, and you are, you are a guest, you are a visitor, and it should feel kind of scary, right, on their turf. Right. And that was the tone of the story. And along the way, you meet these different characters that represent different elements of the team. So we have like this gatekeeper character who, he wears a lot of armor. He's kind of intimidating. He was supposed to kind of represent our defense. We had another character who flew and had a very pointy crown that was supposed to be almost sword-like. That's kind of supposed to represent the finesse and kind of the gifted ability of our offense. And we kind of have this through line with this almost peasant-like character who's going through and kind of following this white orb who's supposed to kind of represent our fan base. And that white orb represents the essence of the game, soccer, which is kind of revealed at the end of the video as it being a soccer ball. Right. And all of this is very abstract, no doubt, but whether they get that or not, watching it, I think you feel something, and you feel something emotionally when you watch it. And that's what I pitched to Al. And we really went back and forth on each one of these characters, and we tried to design them as authentically as possible to make you feel a certain way when you're introduced to that character that represents, the team in a really, really fun way.
Nice. And so I know Al kind of came into the game late, and of course his contacting and being with you also came in late, and you probably just had a short timeline to do this. What was the actual start to finish timeline? How it's probably pretty quick compared to other things, right?
I can't remember exactly how much time. I think we had a good amount of time in pre-production. I mean, it came down to the wire, no doubt, but a couple months, right?
Yeah, I think we I want to say we started conversations in January, maybe December. I think it was right after the holidays, if I remember correct. I just remember coming back. I was visiting family in LA and coming back to Charlotte. And I think that's when we kind of really started the conversation. I think I pinged you before then, just hey, we're thinking about doing this. Let's meet up after the holidays or something like that. But it was from first storyboard, signing off on, contracts, all that, I think it was a couple months before we first showed it. Yeah. And it was it wasn't just the intro video too. Ryan and group have done almost every piece of graphics that you see inside the stadium, including a couple other videos. So it was a decent size ask of them in a short amount of time. So, but yeah.
And so on the filming side, and we're gonna open up the video and kind of talk through some things. But on the filming side, you filmed in different locations, I'm guessing, for this. Also a stage or a studio, kind of a combination of all things. Can you share a little bit about that, Ryan?
Yeah, so we built many pieces of this set, practically what you see, and then we there were moments of it that were completely CGI. There were moments that were sort of a hybrid where we were set extending, but we had a few days in studio to grab I'd say the majority of the video with all these different characters. And then we had a pre-light day and a shoot day in Charlotte with the team, where we kind of built a little room for the players to operate in. So it felt like they're part of that same universe, obviously, and to get their likeness on screen as well. So it was a combination of studio days, and a media day.
And so when like when you're going to actually do the film production, you've already storyboarded to the exact thing, like we need to have shots of this player kind of panning, and are those things already scripted in, or you get there and like, let's try a bunch of different stuff and see what works?
Yeah, with this concept, it's really difficult. I actually built an animatic, so I had the music picked out and cut, and then I started off by putting in just text of where things were going to go. And then, of course, we had our concept art that Al and I went back and forth on many times to dial in what each set and each character would look like. And I put that in the animatic as well. But because the piece was so kinetic in how it was edited, and it is, like I said, sort of this dreamlike video, it's not entirely linear, and it's not possible to do everything storyboarded shot for shot, but we had all the major beats planned out. And with players, you kind of lean into what their comfort level is and what's kind of working on the day. So I knew what we needed to be able to match cut between certain moments, and I know how we wanted to film those players, but we actually we kind of zone lit it so they could operate in a space and let them get comfortable and just be a little bit experimental with how we did it. So it was a little bit of both.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pull up the video now and we can listen in. You guys can walk me through kind of what's happening. So that's the opening scene. That is, you can tell there's some parts of Bank of America in there. Is there certain things that you want to highlight that you're like, okay, that is definitely Bank of America?
Yeah, so this was one of those early conversations that we had where Ryan had a similar model to what ended up in here, but we made the notes of like, let's try to make this feel like, you're in Charlotte in Bank of America. There's the area around the stadium is fairly green and has some good color to it. And I think the first version of this, Ryan, like it was like almost a deserted wasteland, right? Like that kind of vibe to it. Yeah.
And like it just rises from nothing.
Yeah. And so like we added in those trees because it is very green around the stadium. I think very indicative of Charlotte, just a lot of color. And then you start to see like the archways and the turrets. Those remind like those fairly substantial features of the stadium kind of come through. It's subtle hints, but I think it ties
at the
it.
top.
So like, correct. So like those are like the domes you see on the outside of the stadium.
Right.
That type of architectural touch.
Now, Ryan, since you are a producer and writer and kind of do it all, do you have like a signature thing, like Scorsese puts his like iris flower everywhere and has the leading lady always wearing white when you first see her, stuff like that? Do you have some sort of trademark there that we're going to be finding in
no,
here?
I don't think so. Although, I mean, if you were to look at all my videos, you would see definitely a style in there. Just, I guess the way I make videos, it just kind of bleeds through, and I'm not always aware of exactly how that works. But I do like starting early on. Doesn't have to be the first shot, but starting early with a wide. And usually it's not always a practical shot because I'm trying to build a universe. I'm trying to establish, okay, this is where this video operates in. So now that we've seen this wide shot of this, kind of reinterpretation of their stadium in this kind of fantasy world, now every single shot we see after this, the audience subconsciously sees more on the edge of our frames. They can even just imagine it, right? So I guess that'd be the only thing I would say is I do like to establish to our audience where we are and what we're doing.
All right, and any Easter eggs in here?
Well, you're about to see on the next shot, but these little statues on the bridge, I don't remember exactly where I found them, but we put those in there just because I thought it would be pretty cool. I think we tried to sneak in some soccer players in there. I don't know if it really shows on this shot or not, but I don't know if you call that an Easter egg or not. But I will note that the lighting even is a little unsettling, and that it's changing unnaturally, which I think immediately establishes to the audience that this is not entirely reality, and that lighting continues throughout the entire video. You'll see it in the maze, and you'll see it all throughout the different scenes.
Well, and even here, like the subtle light between like the guardsman, as we called him, and Kalina here, like it's very like, what's happening? Where are we? Who are these people? And I think, Ryan, I'm not going to speak for you, but like it's supposed to connect. Your visuals always connect together from the representation of the defense or anything to the player itself.
Right. So we have this first shot of the person holding the sword or whatever. You see the hands, and then we cut to Kalina, and he's holding the ball as the defense. So that's kind of meant to match, right?
Correct.
All right. And then we see his gloves close up. And so now who is this guardsman here with I guess it's an axe of some sort. I forgot what those are called, but what does this represent?
Yeah, so I think we called him the gatekeeper. There's there's sort of a net-like gate behind him, which was supposed to kind of represent like a soccer net, right? And he's protecting it. And we were also obviously cutting between him and our players. So immediately establishing the metaphor in the beginning of the video.
Right. And so you had the close up first, so we're not sure what we're looking at necessarily. And then we see Kalina, we get an idea, and then you get a kind of a zoomed out version of the gatekeeper with the iron kind of goal mesh behind them in a way. Okay. That makes sense. And the lighting. And then we have next kind of scene cuts into, we see a top-down view of the castle or the stadium or wherever we are, and the lights coming in. And so what is this supposed to kind of make us feel?
Yeah, this was one that was really close to the storyboard, almost exactly it. But you'll notice the tile in the castle is supposed to mimic the goalie box and all that good stuff. So again, cementing that metaphor right behind the gate of that being kind of a representation of our defense, and also it works really well in a castle setting. So yeah,
awesome. Okay, so I should just play.
Yeah, there's a little tease of the orb in that shot as well.
You want me to go back?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, well,
this
is my
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, this is one of my favorite kind of like nods to the soccer world in this entire thing. Like, I think, Ryan, we talked about that one little piece of tile, like representing the goalie, the penalty dot, right? Like, this to me is the cool, like, yeah, exactly. That little thing. It's subtle. You're never gonna really hone in on it, but like, it just screams like this is a cool kind of vibe to what you're experiencing, and it's subtly soccer, it's subtly not. Like, it's great. It's a great kind of moment. This is like I said, like one of my personal favorite shots of this entire thing.
All right, so
because it sets the scene so beautifully.
The lights coming in, we see, and I guess we're thinking the person who was outside is coming in. Okay,
correct.
And so now they're in, and I'm guessing we're looking at the eyes of them, and it looks like they're going into a labyrinth or some sort of area to kind of walk through. It's almost like outside. It's like they've walked through that first corridor. So what is this kind of hoping that we see in here?
Yeah, so I guess when I was looking at a bunch of castles, there was usually some sort of garden or maze or whatever, hedges in the back. And I thought that was really cool. Obviously, the vegetation and the idea that that we could connect that with soccer makes a lot of sense. I also really liked sort of the lore of it, that, you know, if we did do this hedge maze, you know, this labyrinth, there could be sort of a monster or a creature that guards it at its center, and that character could represent, you know, kind of the aggressive offense that we have, or the, you know, oftentimes offensive players are, you know, described as dangerous or lethal, and that's
Right.
what we wanted them to feel like.
All right, so I'm going to continue on. You just stop at any time you want to say something. Well, we're looking now, of course, at the labyrinth, and you see from the top what it looks like, but then we go close up to a statue, and it's a statue of a person holding what looks like a soccer ball. May not be there, but
Yeah.
is that
Yeah,
meant to be
exactly.
that? And so who is this representing?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of an idea that happened in post, actually, because originally there was no you know, statue at the center. But I like the idea of, again, I'm trying to kind of create this mythological castle, and kind of, but also still connecting it back to the sport and the team. So I like the idea of having a statue in there with a soccer ball. You know, obviously this is sort of, you know, the weight of the world on this guy's back. And soccer is supposed to be sort of the essence of this universe, right? The most important thing. And so I guess that's kind of what that was supposed to represent.
And is this a CGI or is this a real model that you created?
This is entirely CGI. The
Okay.
last two shots, yeah.
Okay. So we get the lighting, we get now, you get the taste of some sort of flowing cloth, and we're moving closer to it. And now we do a shot of a person, another player. And, you know, in the beginning, we don't recognize who these players are because they don't know them. But now everybody knows exactly who they are, and they can tell, like in this frame, you know, that's Bender, and the previous one, trying to make that out. You guys recognize who we put there? They're all
I
quick.
think that I want to say it's Mackenzie, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, anyway, we flash the players, and now we go to a character that we see earlier. We saw the flowing white, and now we're following that. We see another player, and now we see the full on of what this character is. This player, or excuse me, this character in white with the kind of spikes coming out. Talk about this one, because I know you said earlier this is representing kind of the fans.
Well, actually, no, she's supposed to represent our offense.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and that's why we, similar to the gatekeeper, we're kind of cutting between some of our offensive players and her. And I will say, I mean, it makes sense now, and nobody would question it at all. But at the time, there was some debate about, you know, does it make sense that we're comparing our, you know, obviously male players to a female character? And kind of the thought process was there. Obviously, I really wanted to have a female character because I just felt like it would, first of all, Queen City, it would be really cool. I also felt just with the design of the character, it would contrast really well the sort of strength and the imposing figure of the gatekeeper, something that was a bit more finesse based, and something that I think represented skill a little bit better. So it's not, to me, it wasn't so much about necessarily a gender thing as it was just the attributes of what it takes to be a really skillful offensive player. So, but either way, it was, I think it's a really unique thought and idea. And I think it probably turned out to be one of the most iconic parts of the video and favorite parts of the video for the fans.
And I noticed now you have flowers too here, whereas before we saw it seemed kind of just green. Was that on purpose, or was that just we're just seeing a different part?
Yeah, if you go back to the wide, there actually are flowers in there. But we wanted just little tiny hints of Charlotte FC blue in there.
Got it.
Just to kind of give it that flavor. If you look really close in there, maybe in the 4K version, you can see them. Definitely. But in the wide, it's going to look predominantly green. So,
all right. So now we have, and of course, the Queen is walking. We see more players representing. See the Queen again, or the offense with the spikes, and of course we have the 4 representing the crown, which kind of our logo represents. And then as we continue on, is there anything specific that you wanted to talk about with lighting here, and where the light source was coming from, why we're choosing certain things? Is there anything purpose there, or is it just a matter of kind of setting the scenery?
Yeah, this was another thing that I actually feel very fortunate that Al gave me the trust that he did, not just with the characters and some of the, I think, bold choices we made there, but this was something that I felt would really help us tie it back to the sport in a really beautiful way. And I wanted to have this surreal lighting throughout the whole piece. I wanted to kind of remove us from reality at times, and I wanted there to be a little bit of mystery as to what is this orb and why is it important? Kind of ask that question, so at the end of the video we have a payoff.
All right, that makes sense. That's cool. All right, this is the first time we really see, and I played it that time on purpose, like we really feel like there's kind of this buildup with the sound, but like there we kind of hear that pulsating kind of getting us going. So you said you kind of started with the music, is that correct?
I did. Yeah, I actually had the track picked up before we shot. And it kind of helped me design some of the transitional moments in the video.
Got it.
It was really hard to find a song that felt sort of medieval and modern at the same time, and also fit the tone of the video. But I'm happy with what we landed on.
So I'll go back a little bit so we can kind of hear the build up. All right, so talk about this. How did you make this happen, and what is this supposed to kind of represent?
Well, this is my favorite part of the video. I mean, this is our queen, right? And she flies. It's obviously very mythological and interesting and scary and all that. It's kind of like the thumbnail of the video. I guess the way we pulled it off was a combination of practical effects and compositing. So we did actually have an actor in costume, and she was on wires. So they lifted her up practically, and we had fans blowing this fabric all around, which quite honestly didn't look all that great while we were doing it. It looks kind of silly if you look at the BTS video. But we filmed it in slow motion, and we chose very carefully the best moments. And then we, kind of composited together the most interesting looking parts of the fabric together around her. And I guess a little detail, I don't know if Al even knows this, but I actually mirrored the character, so she's perfectly symmetrical. And again, I think it sort of removes us from reality a little bit too. Yes, exactly. The fabric is not symmetrical, you'll notice, but she is. So
pretty close.
It's pretty close, but it's just a little different. And I think in your head that kind of freaks you out a little bit, or at least it does for me. So
I had no idea, Ryan. So I'm learning stuff
Yeah.
mid-July. This is great.
All right. A lot of quick actions coming up here. You know, we see players, we see characters, we see different things coming here. I'm guessing part of it is to show like this is a quick moving game. This is a fast moving type of thing. Also for dramatics, just meant to show like everybody kind of where they are.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a little bit of a payoff for all that buildup we just had, all that universe building, and now the action, right? It's game time, and it should feel dangerous. It should feel like this is a team that is formidable, that is aggressive, and you know, you're in their territory, and it's dangerous, right? So this is pretty exciting right after we show the Queen taking off and levitating. I'll also note that in a typical open, you put highlights here 9 out of 10 times, and there are absolutely no highlights in this video whatsoever, which is a massively unique trait for an open video. And so we never had to resort to that to get.
This is about the only thing we have is somebody juggling a ball because they didn't have a game. So
exactly, yeah.
All right, so let's continue. So all the different scenes, did you purposely set it up so it was like black, white, or basically light, dark to kind of get us to understand the contrast of, you know, or coming together type thing?
I tried to cut it together in a way that mixed all the different elements of the team and the representation of the team together into one imposing, scary force. And also just trying to get people excited, right? I mean, kind of that movie trailer excitement, certainly in that moment. You paused on her being upside down. She is practically upside down once again. You know, she's mirrored on both sides, except for the fabric. So
yeah. And also just in doing that, you're also, the music itself kind of has that pulsating thing. So your movements in the film also go along with the music. That's kind of this pulsating thing happening. So we're feeling that too. I'm guessing that was intentional too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. This scene or the one before where the flowers are floating?
Yeah, there's a lot of little Easter eggs here. So, you know, I actually wrote up descriptions of each character and what their abilities were, knowing the fans would never really be able to understand or know what, you know, who they are and what their purpose is in this universe exactly. But in order for something to feel authentic and feel bigger than it actually is, I felt I needed to actually go through and write who they were and what, you know, kind of what their powers were. Obviously, the Queen has the power of levitation, so not just for herself, but for other things around her. And I felt, you know, just I was kind of inspired by how these athletes are able to control the soccer ball in such an amazing way. It's almost like they're able to control it through levitation. So that was kind of the inspiration there. So there's that shot of her levitating the rocks and the, you know, kind of leaves around her. And then the next shot.
These characters, we see this big, large clothed character, and then we see two smaller ones. Tell me about this.
Yeah, I mean, these characters are essentially supposed to represent the fan base. And we see one of them at the beginning of the video, and she keeps, you know, appearing throughout the rest of the video. We're going to see her shortly here. But the big one here was actually sort of just discovered in post because one of our guys, this is a completely CGI shot, one of our guys enlarged one of them just for the fun of it. We thought it looked really cool. And again, it's kind of just wild looking. It's only in there for a matter of frames. And again, I like the idea that, you know, it's not so one-to-one or literal that we just have a bunch of fans coming in. It's more that this is a metaphor for the fan base as a whole.
And no matter what, big or small, they're coming.
Exactly. Yeah.
Flip through, we see all the characters again. We finally see some color. So if you think about it, most of it, you see a little bit of the green, you see a little bit of some blue, but since it's being so dark, it almost is muted. But then we see somebody's face kind of in full color with the light. Was there kind of a reason to start doing that here?
Yeah, I mean, I have to give, honestly, Al credit here too, because I wanted to include a human character where we actually see her face in the video, which again is super unusual. You would typically only show player likeness in a video, but again, we're trying to tell a story. We're trying to have some sort of emotional connection to this video, and for me, it's like we need to see real emotion, and I just wanted to tease her perspective before we get to the falling light source that we're about to see. That was kind of fun.
So this is the part where you're talking about the orb or the falling light source. This is our character. Anything happen there that of note?
Yeah, again, it's more just sort of a metaphor of how I think it feels when you're really connected to something, right? That's greater than yourself. And the awesome thing about sports is, you obviously don't know everybody who goes to the game, but you're connected to all of them in the stadium, right? You're kind of a part of this bigger group, and it's actually one of the things I love about sports most. And so this is that literal connection to the game, to the essence of the game that I wanted to represent. And it looked pretty cool too. So
I also like you kind of have the blue tint around the light now, especially right here, which is the same blue.
I think in the previous version, right, Ryan, like that blue was a lot more prevalent, that we kind of went away from the beginning up until this point to kind of like make that shift, right?
Yeah, I think it was a little too much, but we originally were going to have the flames be entirely blue. But then I think just kind of the edges of them read a little bit better, and we ended up going that direction.
All right. Kind of hear some chanting there. Before, we were only hearing just sounds, and now we actually hear a human voice. Was that in the song selection? You wanted to make sure, as you were bringing in the human quality, you also brought in the voice of a human, or was that just coincidental?
We got a little bit lucky with this song. It kind of had all the elements we needed. This just happened to be part of the song that made the most sense at this point.
Now we're seeing more players, and then kind of the striking, or like the sword kind of moving to signal the start of things, and then the logo comes in. And of course, it looks like we're inside of almost looks like a cathedral, even though we're in the castle itself. It's kind of like channeled in that way. Anything you want to say here? Because really it just kind of fades here to the end. We get a close up, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. Well, the king striking at the end was in the shot list. It was kind of built into the story as a final punctuation on you're in our house, and this is a dangerous place for outsiders to be. The logo shot you see at the end is actually Al mentioned, we also did the graphics package. It's sort of a transition into that part of the presentation of the game. This is a piece of our graphics package, our logo loop that the video then transitions into after the video concludes.
And we use that as kind of the bridge between the end of this video and when the players come out. So this is kind of the punctuation of the king slashing across the screen to then we're here, we're ready, it's go time. That's the mentality I had when working with Ryan on this. Like, this is the end of it, we're ready to go. We hit music inside the stadium. That kind of signifies that it's time. It ties into the toll bell that we use. It ties into, royalty gets coronated in cathedrals. Like, all this is connected to the overarching theme of who we are as Queen City, as Charlotte FC, and what we do in stadium.
So, Ryan, did you have enough cuts of different players that if for some reason a player left, was traded, new one brought in, did you have room, other personnel? Did you have to put in spots and like figure out where we want to edit these, or, oh, this is a segment, I can just put this new player here or this new personnel?
Yeah, definitely had enough shots, extra footage to be able to do that. We actually, did have to do a little bit of that. That's inevitable for any season. Rosters change. Right. But yeah, was not a difficult ask for this one.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you got to go. Ryan, there's a couple of things I want to ask just about your company, and just, you call yourselves future-facing creative outlaws. Is that just something that you're like, okay, we want to set ourselves across as different? Why do you call yourselves creative outlaws?
Well, that's a tagline I think we came up with a few years ago. I don't know. I don't have like a particular connection to that. I think our marketing team came up with that one, but
okay.
I do really, everybody says they want to be storytellers, right? But there's a difference between actually doing it and saying you're doing it. And I think this video, that Al and I worked on together is proof of what we value at Triglass and the type of content we're willing to do. It would be a heck of a lot easier to film these guys on a green screen or LED wall or whatever they typically do. But we didn't do that, and we wanted to give the fans something more unique, right? Because guess what? Every team does that. They just change the background colors, right? So, we put in the time and the effort and the heart to make this thing come to life. I mean, we put a lot of ourselves in this video, and that's real storytelling. And most certainly the fans responded to that in a really positive way. And I think that's the difference between what we do at Triglass versus, some others.
Yeah, and you've done lots for many different sports, not just soccer, football, all areas. You're actually an Emmy award-winning company, correct? Like, you have some Emmy awards?
We do have some Emmys. Yeah, we work with all the major leagues, and we're always looking for good partners that share the same types of goals that we have, and we genuinely want to be a good fit with our teams. We want to have long-term relationships with them, with our clients, and that's important to us as well, because the longer I work with the team, the more I understand their fans, their story, and I can tell better stories. I can make better videos for them.
And were you a sports fan growing up? Like, did you watch and look at this stuff and like, I want to do something that tells a story before? Because, you probably had those montage videos, see them all the time. I'm like, I could do something like that better.
I really didn't. I didn't even know what an open was until I started doing them, to be honest. I did grow up a sports fan, but I didn't want to go into sports. I wanted to be a film director. So that's what I went to school for. And it just happened to be when I started my company that the Vikings were one of my first clients. And with the Vikings, I was able to do some content that I think caught the attention of other teams that was more story driven, that was a little bit, unique in that way. And that's, long story short, that's kind of how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, you do a good job with someone, other people are going to know about it. Definitely.
Right.
So you said you wanted to be a kind of a director when you grew up. You went to school for it, but was there some sort of thing behind it that you were like, you just want to tell stories, or you just like the creative part, or like, what is the areas that kind of get your juices going in that direction?
Well, I love movies, as many do, but no, I genuinely have a passion for filmmaking, and that's what I wanted to do. So I'm still working on that direction. I'm working on some documentaries. I'm working on writing scripts, and it is a constant goal of our company and myself as a director to someday get there. And I've been very fortunate to have clients that allow me to do videos like the Charlotte piece that do get me a little bit closer to that goal every single time.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you being on, Ryan, and Al. Thanks for hanging out with us and going over that. Hopefully, fans will get a better insights onto what you did and what it means and kind of all the symbolism behind it, and they'll appreciate it even more and look forward to the next one that we do next year.
I can't wait for next year. I'm already starting to think that way. So, Ryan, I owe you a call about that. So,
all right. Well, thank you both. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share that you didn't get to share today?
I think Ryan is graciously underestimating himself and what he's done in this. Like, I got a lot of compliments at our my peer conference that we had in Nashville a few weeks ago, and the amount of compliments, the amount of how, where, how did you get to this? Like, it was a fun experience for me getting some of the big boys in sports asking us, what did you do? What was the process here? Like, this is a truly revolutionary thing that Ryan did and Triglass did with us. And I cannot thank him enough. Like, it's truly special. And I think holistically, it's the best video I've been involved in. I think a lot of people around the Charlotte FC office, the fans, have responded great to it. And it's all thanks to him and his vision and their abilities at Triglass. So cannot sing in their praises enough.
Thanks, Al. And it honestly was such a great collaboration. And I know from everybody at Triglass, we really appreciated the opportunity and working with you guys. It was amazing.
All right. Thank you both. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Nick.
The Charlotte FC podcast is hosted and produced by me, Nick Finelli. Audio editing and mixing by Eli Finelli. We really appreciate everyone who listens to our podcast. Please make sure you follow the podcast so you get it in your favorite platform's feed. We are on Twitter and Instagram at CLTFC Podcast. And you can visit our webpage to listen and learn more at charlottefcpodcast.com.